Good afternoon, fret friends. I have a quick project on the bench, and I'm not going to go into the details of what this guitar is because I forgot. I do know it's a Mexican Fender neck. It's a Reliced guitar. It belongs to a client of mine from up Sheffield way, friend of a friend. He had this Reliced. It looks fantastic. That said, relicing is not my thing, but it does need a fret level. And we knew it was going to need a fret level. Contrary to what the guy who reliced it said, he said it won't need a fret level, it's bang on there is. I said no it ain't. And it ain't. And a couple of things need doing to this. It does need the nut reshaping, it needs a frets leveling and profiling. So that is all I'm going to do. Not going to do anything else, not going to set it up or anything. Brad himself has cut the nut slots, he's made a good job of that. Not a bad job at all. I would still have gone lower on some of them, but I am just going to do the fret level. That is all I'm going to do now. I have plugged this in and I've played it and it sounds amazing, but then again it would do because these pickups are bare knuckles. I can't remember the type of bare knuckles they are. Again, not paying any great attention. It's not so much paying any great attention, it's I've been told once, I heard it once, but it's not important to me. So all I'm really going to do with this is I'm going to recarve the edges of that nut because that's a little bit shoddy. I'd like to see those corners rounded off a bit more, and I'm going to level the frets, that's it. To level the frets I may have to remove the nut. I'm hoping not to have to remove the nut because with its relicing and everything it'd be a shame to take it out because we're going to lose some of the relicing. So I think I could still level the frets without actually doing that, but this is going to be a pretty short and basic video. I'm not going to film everything that I'm going to do to it because I really want to crack on with it and get it ready. Not that I'm rushed to get it ready, I've got plenty of time to get it ready in. But knowing me, looking at this nut slots and that, they are too high. Knowing me, I'm going to recarve them nut slots anyway. I'm not going to charge. We'll see how we are. If I have to remove a nut, I will remove a nut. Frets are the vintage style frets. I would say they're about 2.3 millimeters wide. They are relatively high, about 1.2 millimeters. They actually look really nice. Look pretty good, don't know what you can see from there. The great thing about them being quite tall is we have lots of room for manoeuvre when levelling. When Brad was here we went over quickly with a fret rocker. I think we're only about 4 or 5 need any great attention, but we are going to level the lot anyway. I've got a basic standard price for that. I've knocked Brad a little bit off. I'm not going to tell you what I'm charging him, but he's very happy with the price I've quoted. And I'm fine with that as well. So there you go. Next time you see this guitar, I will have the neck off the guitar. We'll discard the body. We won't discard it, we'll just put it away somewhere. The strings, I'm going to put these strings back on, I think. Unless I think they need changing. Probably will change them actually. Put a new set of strings on there. I won't be giving them away free, you can pay for them. And that really will be it. So give me a few minutes to get the neck off, get the strings off, get the neck off. We'll get this all, get the neck bolted to a piece of MDF as is normal for me, using its own neck bolts. And we'll come back, we'll check the frets and we'll commence getting the frets levelled. So we're going to check one man's, this doesn't need touching, to my level check. And I've not got my neck dead straight yet, it has a tiny bit of back bow in there. So I'm just going to touch the truss rod. Just ease it off just a little bit, see where we are. We now have a little bit of relief in there, which is good because it means I turn the truss rod the correct way. So I'm just going to give it a quarter turn. It's actually just nipped at the moment. I'm actually going to give it a 1/8 turn. Let's have 1/8. And that neck is now, is it dead straight? There's a tiniest bit of relief in there. So I'm just going to give it another little nip. It's about 1/16 of a turn. I can see where these frets have been levelled before and they've not been crowned properly. They have been polished but they've not been properly crowned. It's an okay job. It is not a brilliant job. I don't think these frets are going to be level. Just going to let my neck settle for a second or two. That's probably giving it ample time to set. And that neck is now dead straight, as straight as it can be. And this is not to embarrass anyone or show anyone up. This is just a live level check. I'm trying to find a permanent marker. I do have one knocking about. Here we go, it's right here, right in front of me, look. A Sharpie. Even says Sharpie on it, because that's because it's a real Sharpie, that's why. So I'm on what I call my night bench, or my winter bench. The explanation is kind of in the name. It's a bench I use at night time or in winter, when the light's not so good, because I have a big spotlight up there. There we go, my GMI fret rocker. I trust this more than any other tool I have in my workshop. We're just going to go across the frets and check them. So we have a high fret there on the outside and inside. I have 3 areas, 1 nearest to you, 2 in the middle, 3 nearest me. So areas 1 and 3 on that one. So far, not bad at all. A little tiny bit of rock there. I'll be honest, I expected these frets to be worse. It may not need a fret level. It's a great thing about doing something live on camera. A little bit of rock there. Was it on 11? I'll have to go and check again now. Not paying attention. Yep. 13 in the middle. So we do have some high frets, but they're not overly high. I expect to get some rock up this end, but this is not as bad as I thought it would be. I am still going to level and re-crown these frets. Oh, there's one. Because the crowning is not brilliant. But that said, we only have 6 high frets, or 6 high spots. And they are not that high. Okay, there are only 6 high spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 high spots over 6 frets. That is not bad at all. I'm just going to check again. I am going to reprofile the frets, but if Brad says these are choking out in certain areas, without making it sound bad, he wants to be looking at the way or how far he's trying to bend these strings, because these frets look fine. There's only one other thing that could possibly be causing a problem, and that is maybe that the radius on these strings is not right, and that is where I'm going to look next. In fact, that's where I'm going to look right now. And what I am going to do, more than I'm going to level these frets, I'm actually going to re-radius them and reprofile them. We do need levelling a little. I mean, a few scoots of levelling beam will be pretty much bang on there. Are we a foot proper at 9.5? We're okay, but we're not cock on. 9.5 inch radius gauge there. And I would think we're probably just a little bit high in the middle. We are. We're a little bit high in the middle on some of these frets. It's not a perfect 9.25 radius, and these frets are not seated perfectly. This looks like to me like it's had a refret in the past. These frets definitely look like they've been out, because I can see little chipped areas at the edge of the frets. It's not been done by me. That's not my work. So I'm gonna have to remove the nut, unfortunately. I'm not going to charge any extra money. But I say I have to be careful getting the nut out. I actually don't have to be careful getting the nut out because it's a relic guitar. Brad won't give a toss if I cause any chips or anything. That just adds to the relicsness of the guitar. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut at the side of the nut, cut away any old glue or lacquer that might be holding it in, because I'm going to knock this out. What I don't want to do is crack the thing in half, because if I crack it in half I have to replace it. That nut should more or less come straight out. Don't quote me on that. I am going to take it over to the other vise. I'm going to get a screwdriver blade and just tap it ever so gently in there, just see if we can prise that nut away without it damaging anything. So fingers crossed with that one. I'll be back and let you know how I get on. So I'm going to remove a nut. It's not major heart surgery. It can go wrong, but there's no reason why it should. I'm just going to grab some tools while I'm here. Now what I'm looking to do is, I've just got it in my vise slightly. What I'm looking to do is get under the nut without damaging anything, and I'm just going to stick a Stanley blade in there, and that just gets us in there. And all I should need to do, because I've scored along the edge of the nut each side, I should just be able to just knock a small bladed screwdriver underneath, and we should move this nut straight away. We don't want to remove any wood, so we're just going to do a gentle tap, and it should come straight out, and it has come straight out, and there you go. And that is the nut removed without any fuss. It will go straight back in. We won't need to alter anything on there. I will need to slightly reshape it because it's very square at this end. I can actually do this off of the guitar. And that was really easy, pain-free. It's come out clean. We don't need to shape or sand or replace or repair anything in there, and that is really good. So we can move the neck back over to the leveling bench, and we can now level the frets without banging into the nut. So thumbs up for that, job well done. As luck would have it, my 9.5 inch radius beam already has 240 grit on there, which means we can radius these frets with no hassle at all. But before I do that, I'm actually going to level the high spots with a file before I hit it with the radius beam. And my file of choice is this wonderful little contraption I got from Chris Allsop on eBay. He makes really good luthier tools. This being a file that is being ground perfectly flat and coated with diamonds. I do believe this is a 300 grit, but don't quote me on it, but it's a great tool. It's perfectly flat. It removes a lot of material in a short space of time, and it will let you know when you removed enough height from the fret you're working on, because it will become easier to use the file. So I'm just going to remove these high spots. Experience tells me when I'm close to where I want to be, but what I'll do is I will check that fret anyway, just to see if we remove those high spots, and we have. And I'll do the same with the other ones. In fact, I'll go across the whole lot. I would have thought that that is pretty good. Oh, we've got the frets where we need them to be. I'm going to quickly check them. I know they were fine anyway. This was high one. I'm just going to go across all of them anyway. Leveling's the easy part. Quite happy with these so far. That was a high one, but it's okay now. Or was it this one? That was the one. That's fine now. I do believe 13 was one of them. my thinking about re-radiusing the lot is I thought these were a little bit flat on top, or a little bit high in some areas on top, should I say. We need to flatten them down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take permanent marker, we're going to try not to slip. I'm going to mark the tops of the frets, and we're going to re-radius the whole lot. And there you go. Radius beam really easily. We're hoping to remove all of the pen quite quickly. Just following a straight line. And I'm looking for a nice even fret. Looking at the material we've lifted off, making sure that we remove the same material from each side. A little bit more this side, so I need a little bit more over there. Again, that to me looks pretty good. We have a nice even radius across the frets, and I would say that we are pretty much done with that. Like I say, not a lot of material removed, but we don't want to be removing a lot of material, so let's just check these frets again, being a little bit more careful, taking his time, checking them properly, and I'm quite happy with this. Hopefully in my other box I have a wooden radius beam with some 400 grit on it, because that will remove a lot of these deeper scratches from the 240 grit. If not, I'm going to have to just go over by hand with some 400 grit sandpaper just to smooth these frets off a little. I'm then going to tape up the fingerboard, leaving just the frets exposed, and we can move on to the crowning and polishing stage. Not a huge job, this. A couple of hours. 2.5 hours. There you go. So the frets are fine. We're radius correctly. I know for a fact that we are now level. I'm going to do the same from 400 grit if I've got some on the beam. I'll just go and check in my other box. Praise the Lord. We have 9.5 inch radius block with some 400 grit on there, and again same thing. And that is all of the pen removed from all of the frets. There's a tiny little bit of pen just on that middle one there. But once that's gone, which it now has, that is it. We are radiused, we are sanded back to 400 grit, which makes it a lot smoother, makes it a lot easier to remove the scratches when we polish later on. So that is the frets levelled, the frets re-radiused. I'm now ready to tape up the fingerboard. I'm going to come back in, we're going to crown these frets, then we're going to move on to the polishing stage. Moving on to crowning, and I'm not moving the camera any closer. I've shown this many times, so you can skip back a video or two and you'll see me crowning properly, but I will explain how and why we crown the frets. So we've levelled the frets, we now have these frets all flat across the top going this way. We need to rebuild that crown. The reason we make that crown and make the frets of that top curve is the contact point of the string on the fret needs to be quite narrow. We've actually widened the contact point because we removed material from the top of the frets. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a marker, we're going to pen over the frets, and I'm going to shave off the edges of each fret until we start to rebuild that crown. Now in the old days I would have used a 3-cornered file with ground flat or safe edges, so we can't dig into the fingerboard. That's why we tape up fingerboard, by the way, to protect it. But we have new inventions which enable us to recrown a fret without doing so much work, because a crowning job, recrowning, could take anything up to an hour, but in these days of StuMac tools, get something like a Z file. It has 2 cuts. It's a diamond file. It has a long cut nearest you and a short cut nearest me. Flip it 180 degrees. It has a short cut nearest you but a long cut nearest me. And what this does is it will cut the fret one side more than the other, different angles. It'll turn it over and it does the opposite. And what that will do is it'll cut shallow, then it'll cut deep, so it can rebuild that crown for us. It doesn't, however, leave a perfect semicircle. And to get the perfect semicircle, I will then go and use a proper profiling file, again a diamond file, a gift to me from Nigel Roberts, who is a fantastic luthier, now retired. He was known as electricalluthier.co.uk, now taken over by his protege and ex-apprentice Danny Lynn, who is a good friend of mine. But anyway, I've penned it over the frets, so we'll go with the first one. I do have a guitar case in the way, I'll just move that. I'm on my new swivel chair, which is great, by the way, it just came a couple of hours ago. But anyway, we'll clean the file and we'll it's just a matter, because it's a diamond file and I need to do a few strokes. And I now have a thin black line about 0.5 millimeters wide, a little bit thicker on one side, so I'm going to go over that again. I'm looking for about 0.4, 0.5 millimeters width. And that is beautiful. And once we've gone across with the Z file, we'll finish off with the profiling file. This will remove we won't have any burrs, but any unevenness. I know some people use just a profiling file. My friend Danny Lynn actually uses just a profiling file. I just like to use a Z file. I mean, it cost me 125 quid, I'm going to use it. So that's that one done. And we now have that perfect crown built up on that fret. So just to show again, really simple. Oh, it's beautiful. Always cleaning the file. 2 done. On to the next one. You can really get a shift on with these. Doesn't take you long at all once you get going. Again, beautiful job. Profiling file. And because we're not removing the top of the fret, that black line's still there, we're not removing any height. If we know that the frets are level, it means the frets are staying level. And to prove that point, we're going to move across one. And if we remove material from any of these, this one will now rock. And it doesn't rock. We've maintained the height across the fret. So I've done 3. I've got the rest of them to do. I'm going to do the rest of them off camera. I need to mark up each fret. But each fret, or the 3 frets I've done, are now beautifully crowned. And they are awaiting the polishing. Polishing in itself is a different job altogether. That is the longest part of the process. It takes longer. You spend a lot more time doing it. I'm going to be in effect polishing with 7 grits of sandpaper and one lot of extra fine steel wool. So I'll be polishing the frets 8 times. Now I'd imagine there are 21 frets on there, so we've got 21 times 8 is 168. So I've got 168 frets to polish, which will be fun. Is it 168? Yeah, it certainly is. And there you go. So I'm going to crack on, get the rest of them done off camera. Once we move on to the polishing stage, I'll turn the camera back on and I'll show you how we go about polishing. Crowning done. I'm going to do something I wasn't necessarily going to do, and that is I'm just going to roll over these end bevels because they are a little bit sharp. And I could go with just sandpaper, going across each one, but I'm going to use again, another Stumac tool, a Stumac fret end file, and it's just a matter of rolling over and going over the top. This file only cuts on the edges. The bottom and the top are safe edges. There is no cut on there. So with the tape on there, all I'm doing is I'm not cutting into the wood or the tape, I'm just cutting the fret and I'm just rolling in and rolling over. And my friend Nigel Roberts used to do this just with a regular file, and sometimes I was doing it with a regular file until I bought this one. And what Nigel Roberts can do in 3 strokes of a file is just amazing. Now he's retired now, but what a guy, I learned so much from Nigel. But there you go, so I'm just rolling these edges, just taking that sharp burr off, and I'll still sand over these edges a little bit later, but I'm going to crack on with this, get them all done. I'll flip it around, get the other side done, and then we're going to move on to the polishing. Fret ends done, we'll be moving on to the polishing, and first I'll take some 400 grit and I'll start polishing out the worst of the deeper scratches. And it's really easy with this. This 400 grit will really cut into these scratches, and it doesn't take long with a 400 grit at all. But once I've done this, I'll also be going over the fret ends, probably with some 600 grit like so, just to round these off, even though I've filed them. And then we'll start the polishing with the 6 grits of paper. Now this is the quick part, because this is not the real polishing, this is just removing the deeper scratches. Because the scratches are this way, so we polish just this way. Not getting right to the corners or anything, just over the tops with this 400 grit. Just to start off getting these scratches removed. And if you could see close up, you'd see those scratches aren't really there anymore. And I'm going to crack on and do this. It'll take me a while. And once that's done, I'm going to move on to the 6 grits. I think I said that there were 6 grits go from 600 to 2000. So you've got 600, 800, 1000, 1200, 1500 and 2000. And we'll just remove more of the scratches, bring them to a lovely shine. And the frets up, once done, will be glass-like and very easy to play. So I'm going to crack on, get these on. Once I've finished with the sandpaper, by the way, we'll finish with finest grade steel wool, which will bring them up to a beautiful shine. They'll look fantastic when they're done. So I'm going to crack on, get these done. This is going to take me a couple of hours, so I'm going to crack some sands on, take my time, try not to get my arms aching too much. I'm actually used to this now. My hands used to really ache a lot after doing this. It is boring. It's the most tedious job on a guitar or on a setup or after a fret level. I can't say I don't like it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it, if you know what I mean. But it's part of the process, so I'm just going to crack on. I'm not going to moan, get some music on and crack on, get it done, and I'll come back and show you the results. So finally I have the frets polished. I've gone through with 7 grits of sandpaper, finished off with finest grade steel wool. There you go, there's a remnant there. These frets have come up beautiful. I'm just going to peel off the tape so you might get more of an idea of how wonderful these frets look. Just going to peel off the tape, and you now see why we put a strip down the edge. It means we can peel it all back in more or less one go, rather than just do an individual fret at a time. This way we get a start. See where I'm going with this. These frets look marvellous. They are glass-like, scratch-free, glass-like frets. And by taping up the fingerboard, we don't have any scratches in there. We've got no filings in there. And all we need to do is peel off the tape. And everything's clean. And look at that. And you're probably not seeing what I'm seeing, but these frets look magnificent. And they are all done. Don't need to do anything else on the frets. All we need to do now is replace the nut, stick the neck back on the guitar, get the strings on, And we can move on to the next part of the job, which will be to cut the nut slots. These look superb, wow. Job well done. Getting to the final part of the setup. I've got the strings on, I've stretched them in, we've got it in tune. I'm happy with the action at the 12th fret. I'm happy with the amount of relief in the neck. And one other thing that was puzzling me and that was not right, and I'm not being paid to do this, I'm doing it under my own steam, is the nut slots are not cut right. They're far too high for the guitar to play correctly. And as a rule, I would like to see, this is, I'm going to measure the distance from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, and on this side I do it in millimetres, being English, we are not imperial or metric. I'd like to see a gap of about 0.3 millimetres on the bass side and about 0.2 millimetres on the treble side, and we gradient down. So quite a bit over that, about 0.5 there, about 0.5 there, and about 0.5 there. We're 0.25 millimetres too high, and this side again, we're almost half a millimetre too high on each of the slots. Now, I didn't know the gauge of string on here, but I've found out since, well, I've measured them. They are an 1149 set Ernie balls, I imagine. So I'm going to cut the slots to as close as I can, and we would normally go 11, 14, 18, 28, 38, 48. The closest I have are a 50 for a 48. For a 38 I have a 36, we'll just angle it slightly. I do have a 28. On the 18 side, the closest I have is a 16, so we'll angle that and make it a little bit wider. The closest to the 13, 14 I have is a 13, we'll do the same again. And the closest to 11 is a 10, so we'll do the same again. We'll just slightly angle the files as we cut the slots. So the first one I'm going to start with is this one. Measure a couple of times before you start cutting. We're certainly too high. Got my tuner there, got it in tune. The closest I've got to a 48 is a 50. This is my Hosco set. Big old set, set of 11. Just show the brand name on there. I think it's cost me, for a set of 11, I think it cost me about 130 quid. Great files. And these cut a proper U shape. Really good files. But don't go too deep. Go too deep, you'll be replacing the nut. And I like to angle slightly back toward the machine head. Make a few cuts, take your time, don't go too low. Keep checking your work. Got a good way to go yet. Give the file a clean. Cleaner files cut better. And while we're just buzzing, that's good enough for me. I'm happy with that. Move on to the next one. Now that will be a 38. The closest I have, I believe, is a 36. So we're going to slightly angle that. We're going to put this one back in its sleeve when I find it. So I'm going to show you how we flare open the slots. Just check again. Using a file, it's not quite wide enough. So 36 we need to be a 38. So we're going to cut a little bit more depth, then we're going to slightly angle the file and slightly angle this way. And that just flares the slot open a little bit, and that already is looking good. buzzing just a little bit, but we'd like that to be a little bit lower. We'd like it to be about 0.275. So I'm going to go a tiny bit lower because we want it to be less than 0.3. Again, with the file, nice and gentle, don't go mental. And that should do. Should get a nice buzz now. There you go, nice one, that one done. The next one, we're going to be looking at about these two, around about 0.25-ish. So we'll go slightly lower as we get down to the thinner strings. So 0.25. You can see how it's working now. We'll just have a look. So the closest we're going to get to, we're going to want a 28. I believe we do have a 28, which is great news. Just got to cut the slot to the exact width. So we don't need to angle it or anything. We don't need to cut too much off this one. .028. Perfect. On to the next one. You get the idea. I'm going to do the next three off camera. You get the idea. You know exactly how we're working it now. I'm going to get the next three done. Once they're done, stretch the strings in once more and we will be good to go. So here we are, quite late on a Friday evening. What else is there better to do? The pubs are shut. We're in a tier 3 plus restriction in Nottinghamshire. So you know, we can't go out to the pub or anything. So here I am on a Friday evening. It's just coming up to about 10 PM. I'm going to work until I've had enough, I think, tonight. And I'm still raring to go. I'm still going to do a couple more or do another job after this one. But this guitar is done. And it came in and the guy just wanted a fret level. So I've done a fret level, I've recut the nut, I've reshaped the nut, and I've given my guitar a setup. And the last thing I did was cut the nut slots. The nut slots were way too high. I've cut right into that nut now. But the main thing I've done is I've done a fret level and a fret profile. We've got a beautiful crown on these frets. The frets were a little bit flat and the polish wasn't that brilliant. So we've given them a level, re-crown and a polish. I've also redone the bevels at the edges. I've done the edges of the guitar or edges of the frets as well because they were a little bit sharp. So we've re-profiled the edges, given it the full works. If I'd have been charging full price for what I've done on this guitar, you'd have been looking at probably £140. I've not charged anywhere near that. I've only just charged half that, to be honest with you. Brad is a good friend. He's a working musician. And he's going to be really, really pleased with this. So it's all ready for him to pick up. One more thing I would like to do is probably bring this pickup a little bit higher. Bridge pickup, it's a little bit low looking at it, but I'm going to test the volumes first, see how we are. But for all intents and purposes, this Reliced Telecaster is finished. Nice, easy one. Only took me a few hours. It's been good fun. Great pickups on this as well. It sounds amazing, but it is done. So one thing left for me to do before I sign off, and that's to remind you of my website, which is facebook.com/ng17. Again, that's facebook.com/NGONESEVEN. I am Victor. I am your fret friend. And until the next project, as always, God bless you, be good to each other, and I'll see you in the next one.